Yeah, so my name's Joe, hello. And I've been at Innocent for about 7 years, and I'm going to chat to you guys today about kind of some of the reasons why, as inherently biased as I obviously am, I think we've got ourselves a pretty good relationship with the guys who pay our wages, the people who buy our drinks, our consumers. I was just having a conversation earlier with Natasha, and it might be worth mentioning this, how I actually came to be working at Innocent. So I first came across the brand probably, it was in my second year of university, I think, and I lived in a student flat up in Lancaster, pretty typical lads student flat, and one of the guys I lived with was this chap called Ian, and Ian played a lot of World of Warcraft. You probably know the kind of guy he was. He wasn't a big fan of sunlight, and he this kind of translucent skin. And every time, like the rest of us, he didn't eat or drink particularly healthy while he was at uni, and every time he'd go back to visit his parents in Hull, his mum would always make sure that she had a fridge full of Innocent smoothies so that when he came back, she could actually get something reasonably healthy into his diet. So Ian would guzzle these down and then come back to our student flat, fully revived or relatively revived. And one time, unbeknownst to Ian, his mum decided to, after one of these visits, his mum decided to write Innocent a poem, because she thought Innocent seems like the kind of company that might actually appreciate getting a poem. And it said essentially, you know, thank you for helping me to put something other than crisps and vodka into Ian's stomach. And about a week later, because obviously Ian didn't know that she'd done this, and about a week later from the pit of despair that was our living room at the time, Ian came shouting up the stairs going, guys, you've got to come down, you've got to see this. So we went downstairs, and there was this box just been hand-delivered by a courier, 15 fridge-cold Innocent smoothies, and there was a little handwritten note in there that just said, your mum writes a lovely poem, I hope you enjoy some drinks on us. And I was really quite blown away by that, and I'm not going to break down on stage with the emotion of recalling it. But I was really impressed, you know, and I was a proper kind of liberal lefty at uni, and I had no interest in business, and I thought, well, you know, any business was a nasty thing generally, and I just thought, wow, you know, there is a company that is trying to do things in as I saw, the right way. And long story short, when it came to actually looking for a job post-university, I ended up getting one at Innocent Drinks as a people's champion, who would have been the people who sent the drinks out and wrote the little handwritten note to Innocent. And now, 7 years later, here I am. I guess continuing the kind of historical theme, for those of you who don't know, just a brief history lesson. Innocent, I'm sure lots of you are aware of this, but was started by these three guys, Rich, Adam, and John. There they are looking fresh-faced and youthful at the start of their journey, and here they are now, old, beleaguered. Except for Rich in the middle there, who sort of retains the air of a prepubescent boy. He's always had the youthful complexion. And the three of these guys met at university, became good friends. After uni, they got jobs in London, decent jobs. They paid pretty well. And they worked these jobs for a couple of years, but they never particularly loved what they were doing. And I guess like a lot of us, they'd often talked about maybe setting up their own business together one day. Like most of us, they didn't actually get around to doing it for a while. And in fact, their first idea for a business, because they had this idea that they wanted to do something that would make life a little bit better and a little bit easier. And they started off, this is no joke, with the electric bath. That was actually their first business idea, which had a kind of fairly major and potentially fatal design flaw. So they didn't settle on the electric bath, which is good, or else I wouldn't have a job now. They settled on fruit smoothies, so bottles of crushed fruit juices naturally made. No concentrates, no preservatives, no weirdness, just fruit in a bottle, which is less likely to kill you than an electric bath, which is a good thing. And once they kind of had their idea, they wanted to do a bit of research to check whether this idea was actually something that anyone wanted to buy, but they didn't have any money and they were still working their jobs. So they got two big bins. This is absolutely true, a yes bin and a no bin. They wrote yes and no on the front of these big bins. And they hired a stall at a local jazz festival called Jazz on the Green down in Parsons Green in London. And they made and sold their homemade smoothies there over the weekend. And they had this big sign next to the stall that said, do you think we should give up our day jobs to make these smoothies? And they asked people to vote using their empty bottles. At the end of the weekend, yes bin was full, no bin was next to empty. Rich is adamant that there were 3 bottles in the no bin, one from each of their mums, who really didn't want their kids to jack in their decent city jobs to go and squash fruit for a living. But true enough, you know, the public had spoken, and on the Monday actually directly after that festival, because they'd committed to, if that yes bin's full, then we're going to go for it. albeit with a fair bit of trepidation, I'm sure. They actually went in and resigned, all three, on the same day and committed to making a go of this smoothie making business. And I guess what I really love about that story is A, that it's true, which is good, and B, that we might never actually have got started without a willingness, I guess, to ask people what they think and then make real decisions based on the things that they said. And that's very much a spirit that we try to keep alive in the business, and one that I guess my team especially is kind of chiefly responsible for making sure we stay true to that principle. And we've grown loads, right, since we first started. So we've made our first kind of proper commercial smoothie sale in the cafe across the road from our office back in 1999. And now, 15 years later, we're the #1 selling smoothie brand in Europe. We sell our drinks in 15 different countries. And we're on our way to becoming the #1 chilled juice brand in Europe as well. But despite the fact we've kind of grown a lot, we've always tried to stay small when it comes to this idea of talking and listening to the guys that buy our stuff. And this is our wall of love. It's a giant corkboard that sits right at the front of the office. So it's the first thing you see when you come into work in the day, and the first thing that we'll kind of proudly point out to any visitors that come and see us. And we're really lucky at Innocent in that we get sent all this weird and wonderful stuff. So we get kind of handwritten letters, hand-drawn pictures, hand-knitted hot water bottle holders, all sorts of kind of weird and wonderful stuff. And we put the cream of the crop up here on this board. And I guess the point of me showing you this is that, as I'm sure you guys appreciate, it isn't normal to get this kind of stuff in business. You know, generally speaking, the only reason you'll get in touch with a brand is to say, my internet's crashed, fix it, you bastards. And that is pretty much the sentiment of most consumer contact. And I'm not suggesting that, you know, that we don't get complaints, because we definitely do. And I'm also not suggesting that every single person who buys a fruit smoothie then rushes home and hand knits us a bespoke wall hanging. But I do think we're pretty unique in terms of the quantity of the contact that we get, but especially the quality of that contact. And I guess I kind of want to give you a sense of how that's come about in a relatively short space of time. Yeah, and a lot of it is the fact that we've always been a social brand. So well before the days of Facebook and Twitter, we were out there talking to people. And I think if you boil down social media to what it is, essentially, you're just talking to people on different platforms. And in that respect, I guess our first kind of social media platform was really our packaging. So when Rich, Adam, and John first started making smoothies, they realized that there was all this space on food and drinks labels that got taken up by kind of unnecessary crap, essentially. You know, there are some things that by law you have to put on your packaging, things like nutritional information or use-by dates, that kind of thing. But generally speaking, you know, I think especially 10, 15 years ago, all you ever read on packaging was kind of all of this technical and legal mumbo-jumbo about your statutory rights not being affected, and call the customer care hotline and all of this kind of crap. And they realized, look, we can get rid of all of that, which gave us loads of space to start talking to people in our own way. And so we tried to use a kind of, to be honest, it was a tone of voice born of the way we talk to each other in the office, and that's sort of something that we try and stay true to now. So it's also a very kind of human voice, one that's hopefully kind of natural and honest and engaging. And human beings like being talked to like human beings, unsurprisingly. As I said, there are a lot of companies now that kind of do this and take on this way of talking to our consumers, which overall I think is a really good thing. But if you think 10, 15 years ago, to have a company talk to you on its packaging was pretty weird. And to have one sort of talk to you in such a kind of informal way was even weirder, and people responded to it really well. So yeah, so we write stuff on our packaging and we draw things too, and sometimes it's stuff that relates to fruit or the things that you'll find in the product. Other times it's just kind of random bits and bobs about, that one on the end there is about the fact that the term bee's knees doesn't actually exist, because bees don't have knees. So it could be kind of anything and everything that we write about, and I guess importantly, it isn't always writing about us. I've always talked to people online too, so as people started emailing us in our first year of business, somebody wrote in and said, oh, have you guys thought about doing like a weekly newsletter or something like that? And we hadn't, but we thought, okay, so we sort of emailed everyone that had ever emailed us and said, would you guys like to receive a weekly newsletter? And all 11 people who signed up to receive it on that first week. Of those, most of them stuck around for week 2, which was good. And that's grown now, and we now send it out, I think, to about 186,000 people every week. And in many ways, I guess that was our first kind of Facebook. And once we'd figured out how blogs worked, which again was just kind of done haphazardly, we tried to get some different software to work on our website. We didn't really know what we were doing. It was a mess. It didn't look great. But as soon as we could, we kind of started a blog online and again, just talked to people from day one, really. We've always talked to people in the flesh as well, which is a good idea. So on the back of our packaging, from the moment we started the business, we've always said, please pop round to Fruit Towers, or if you want, just come and visit us in our offices, which is quite a weird thing to do in many ways. What's probably even weirder is the fact that so many people actually take us up on the offer to do it. I think last year we had probably just over 600 people through the door. At various times they'll just pop in, they've read it on the packaging and they sort of turn up nervously and they're like, does this really happen? Can I come in? And half of them are really weird, but that's okay. And this is actually, I should really change this photo, but I love it because it's the entrance to our old office we moved about a year and a half ago. But the sign above the window there for burglars would have been a lot funnier if we hadn't had 4 break-ins in the last year that we were there. And we'd always have these sort of mini crisis meetings that were like, should we get rid of the joke about burglars or do we keep it? And we kept it. Love the joke. Talking to people in the flesh is really important. So we put on a few different events over the years as well. And we started with this free music festival, which some of you may or may not remember, called Fruitstock, which was held in Regent's Park in London. And it was a free festival, and it was really our attempt to just say thank you to those people who had helped us to grow in the early years, because we didn't have any TV advertising for years and all the rest of it. It was just word of mouth. People picked up the bottle, they liked it, they liked the product, they started telling their friends about it, and we thought it was a decent thing to do. And we thought for a while it was just going to be this guy that turned up, which would have been a bit of a sad affair, but in the end, 30,000 people came along that first year, and within 3 years we had 160,000 people there in Regent's Park. But to be perfectly honest, we had no idea how to cater to that many people. We didn't have enough toilets and that kind of stuff, so we kind of got our shit together, and essentially the next year we reformed it as the Innocent Village Fete, which was a bit more family focused, still some free booze, still some live music, still lots of free smoothies, but a bit more welly-wanging than raving. And the most important thing for me about kind of all of these events is that the guys who work for Innocent gave up their weekends to work there. So as much as possible, any event that we do, we try and, if we can, avoid using sampling stuff and just try and use our own guys. And it's amazing the feedback we got for these events, because I'd kind of anticipated that we would get nice comments about the day in general, or the music, or the free smoothies, or whatever it was. I guess what we kind of hadn't banked on was just how many people went to the trouble of saying how nice it was to meet someone who actually worked for the brand, and to put a face to the brand. I mean, that meant a lot to a lot of people. I've got a video here of another event. It's called the Innocent AGM. We don't actually hold it every year. We held our last one a couple of years back. We've got another one coming up this year. Essentially, we get 100 or 150 of our consumers into the office on the day. We kind of recruit them via Facebook or our newsletter. And we just chat to them openly about what we've been up to. And if this works, then you can watch a short film.
Oh yay! Oh yay! Oh yay! Welcome to the Innocent Annual Grown-Up Meeting!
I'm really proud to welcome you to the 4th Innocent AGM. I get especially proud on days like today because people from Innocent turn up on a day off, which is amazing. Boring stuff out of the way first. There are toilets here, loads, so use them.
we got Innocent going, where the idea came from, and sort of how we've got to where we are today.
Genuinely the only company in the world right now that uses little mini hand-knitted hats to sell its products.
You make fruit smoothies and you make veg pots. What about fruit pots?
Flabbergast, my endoplasmic turtle.
But it tasted phenomenal, and we just loved all the kind of chilies and the warmth and the spice and everything else. But I would really want to say thanks again for everyone coming in the kitchen. It made a really special day for us, and we love all your ideas, so keep them coming in.
I just said to Natasha at the start of this, the weird guy at the start with the tricorn hat is actually my dad, which he is the 7 times national town crying champion, and I had a difficult childhood. Cool, so through things like the AGM, events like Fruit Stock, talking to people on our packaging, talking to people on our blog, etc., we've been talking to people for a long time, and I think kind of really one of the major reasons why we're doing pretty well in this new world of social media and digital marketing is because essentially that should all be about engaging with people, and that's something that we've been doing for a long time. So I've kind of put together here some things that we've learned. None of it's rocket science. I don't think good business needs to be complicated. I think very often it becomes complicated, and that's when it gets a bit messy. But hopefully there's some stuff here that you guys can all kind of take something from, or a few principles that possibly inspire you or get you to think a bit differently about the way your business is doing things. So first of all, a bit of kind of classic marketing line, keep it human, but keep it human for me means talking like a human being and about bothering to have conversations with people, which hopefully has kind of come through so far. So this is just an example in the background, I guess, of the kind of conversations that we're having day in, day out throughout the day on Twitter. And you know, we've got many more examples of Facebook and email and all the rest of it. And I guess I'm really proud to say that as a brand, we don't take shortcuts when it comes to direct contact with our consumers. We read every single tweet that we get. We read every single post on our Facebook wall. We read every single email that we receive, and we invest a lot of time and energy and hopefully a fair amount of creativity in getting back to people with a really top quality, personalized response. As kind of cheesy as it sounds, I guess every time someone gets in touch with us, and this is kind of what I try and instill in my team, whether it's somebody who's responding to the tweets or whether it's somebody who's doing kind of our more traditional customer services, that is an opportunity to, somebody who's gone out of their way to get in touch with you, whether they had a complaint or whether they had something nice to say, they have opened up a dialogue. And it's up to you now whether you turn that person into someone who loves your brand so much they want to tell their friends about it, or loves your brand so much that next time they're on the chilled juice aisle, they think, oh, actually, I'll have that one over that one because they really made me laugh, or they were really careful and attentive with my problems. Rio, one of our people's champions now at Innocent, she does these little hand-drawn doodles on every single envelope that she ever sends out to our consumers. So I wandered past her desk one day. I had no idea she was doing it, and I saw that she was doing these little scribbles, and I kind of said, oh, I really liked it, but I just said, why are you doing that? And she said, well, I just thought, you know, if I got a letter in the post from a big company, I'd be quite impressed if it had little doodles on the front of it. It's such a small thing, and people are blown away by this. You know, you write to Innocent because you had a fizzy smoothie or something, and then you end up with this handwritten card and a hand-drawn doodles on the front. And they're always personalised, so this person lives on the coast in Portland, in Dorset, so they've got the seaside scene. But yeah, I think kind of big money TV adverts and mass marketing campaigns and mass digital campaigns too are great because you get to kind of reach people really quickly. But by their very nature, they're kind of short-lived and will be always fairly impersonal no matter how hard you work. And you know, I have absolute faith that anyone who pops into Fruit Towers for a tour or who gets one of these through their postbox or who takes part in a bit of kind of sustained two-way banter with us on Twitter is going to remember that bit of contact for far longer and with far more fondness, I think, than any TV ad that we've ever made. So for us, I guess there's a huge amount of value for the brand and loyalty for the brand to be gained by just bothering and taking the time to talk to people on a one-to-one level. And because we've been doing that from the start, you know, week in, week out now, we're talking directly to thousands of people, and that starts to snowball, and that's actually quite a lot of people by the end of a year, and quite a lot of people who are hopefully also going on to tell their friends about it. So it's kind of a useful marketing channel for us at scale. I think being human is also about admitting your cock-ups. So this is a post from February, and we had managed to put new for summer packaging on a product that was out there in February, and we had quite a lot of, I mean, as you can see from the picture, it wasn't particularly summery, and we had quite a lot of people getting in touch and generally taking the piss out of us online. So we just thought, look, we'll do a post about it and just admit to our mistakes. Yeah, we're a business of human beings, and we make cock-ups, quite a lot of cock-ups actually, but just talk about them openly. People actually react really nicely to that kind of thing. It shows the human side to the business. And talk about other stuff too, right? That's something that we've always done. We've done it on our packaging right from day one. We've done it on our blog. I find any human being who talks about themselves incessantly to be incredibly boring. And I really do think that's the same for brands on social media. And I know that obviously our brand lends itself more easily to talking about other things than it would if you were, say, you know, a more corporate bank or whatever it is. But I think there's a good argument for not always talking about yourself all the time. I think no matter how hard we work to make fruit or fruit-based drinks interesting, I don't want to hear about fruit or fruit-based drinks all day, every day. I don't think any of our followers want to hear about fruit or fruit-based drinks all day, every day. So it's healthy to talk about cupcakes too. Showing your listening is, again, a very easy thing to say, and something that I think as brands grow, very often lots of brands kind of forget to do this bit. They're great at doing it when they're small and they're in touch with all of their consumers, and it gets harder to do as you get bigger, so you have to kind of make it something that you're committed to doing. And not just listening, but showing that you're listening. That's the key bit. And lots of kind of ways you can do that. As I said, we talk to people on our packaging, but we also use it to, right from the off, quite informally invite people to get in touch with us. And I think that was a really key step for us, because it wasn't a case of, if you've got a problem, get in touch. It was, fancy a chat, nothing on TV, get in touch with us. A much more informal way of inviting contact that then meant more people got in touch. And obviously now we've got Twitter and Facebook and stuff on there too. And because lots of people get in touch with us, we're able to get a really decent wealth of insight from our consumers without having to run it through a million focus groups or whatever it is. We get good real-time feedback all the time. And in my team, we kind of compile this monthly report, which summarizes, I guess, everything that has been said about us over the last month that we've received directly from consumers across these various different channels. And crucially, it's a really kind of no-holds-barred, honest report. So with real examples of the kind of things that people have been saying. It's no good making a report that makes the marketing team look nice for the sake of it, or because you don't want to tread on someone's toes in the technical team if you talk about the complaints we've been receiving or whatever it is. We will just tell it how it is in that report, and in that way, you know, in time we get to learn from stuff and hopefully make decisions that are actually based on the things that people are really saying, not just the stuff that we think they're saying, or not just the stuff that came out of a focus group when we sat them around in a room and said, what do you think we should do next? But the stuff that they came to us organically and said, we would like you to do this. I think it's a cracking example. Anyone in here not like bananas? A few. Be proud of it. They're a freaky little yellow fruit. I get a few more hands. Good. Well, loads of people don't actually like bananas, and this was a glaring oversight from us. So we only made kiwis, apples, and limes, our first banana-free recipe, about 4 years ago now. And we only made it as a direct response to the fact that so many people had got in touch and said, the banana is the devil's fruit. What are you doing putting it in all of your drinks? And that's gone on to become, you know, our third best-selling recipe. And it's one of those things, though, where I think businesses so often do this. You just get locked into a way of doing things, and you can miss something so obvious. I mean, for us, to constitute a smoothie, it had to have banana in. And of course, it doesn't, actually. We just needed to work a bit harder in the kitchen and come up with a recipe that could work without banana in it. And as a result, we've made lots of money. And you know, we might not have done that if we didn't have those open channels and we didn't have that kind of feedback culture within the business. And something that we did in my team was to find out the email addresses of everyone that had ever, because we've got, you know, quite a sort of intricate level of categorizing every contact that comes in, and we found out the email addresses of everyone who'd ever emailed us about this. They stretched back over about an 8-year period. And then we wrote them all an email saying, oh, we've got something we'd like to send you in the post, and can you send us your address if you're not too weirded out? And we sent them just a handwritten note that just said, you asked for it, we did it, sorry it took us so long, with just a voucher for a free one of these. And it was just one of those little touches. You know, we probably reached about 350 people directly, but people, again, were just blown away. They were like, you weirdos, you remembered my email from 2004, what's wrong with you? But you know, I always want us to keep doing that, and I guess a lot of the stuff that I'm saying here is that Twitter and Facebook gives you all these brilliant ways of communicating en masse to people, and everyone gets really excited by that, but don't forget the importance of little things like a handwritten card. There is nothing more impressive, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys, you know, than getting a nice handwritten something in the post. It will always be really nice. And it doesn't have to be making a brand new product, right? So it was purely from, and pretty much predominantly Facebook comments, that we realized people were just having a bit of an issue opening the tab on our veg pot. So again, just pass that feedback on through the report and make the tab a bit easier to open. And then it also, you know, in turn gives us actually nice content to share online and to show people that we are listening to what they say. A nice comment from Steve, Celebrity Monkey Simeon there. And that's the kind of comments that we like to get, you know, and that's why we do this stuff. Showing you're listening isn't always about creating a new product or making tweaks to products that exist. So this is Blue Monday as a concept, which I imagine most people have sort of heard of. Allegedly, 21st of January, you haven't been paid yet, Christmas is over, it's apparently the most depressing day of the year. It's a complete bunch of shite as far as I'm concerned. So we've sort of, you know, we wrote this post about it, and people seem to really like that. And Paul Murphy got in touch and said, oh, it's also Penguin Awareness Day, which, rightly so, is a lot more cheerful. And because we've got an ace in-house creative team, within an hour we'd made this Penguin Awareness Day post, which is nice. And then our first comment was all about thanking Paul for his idea. Finally, an entirely fictitious, complete sham of a day we can all get behind. But just an example there of how it's not always about like serious changing bits of product development. We use these channels to show people that we're listening to. It could just be a comment on our Facebook wall that means we then go away and do something a bit differently. Yeah, and good things come from sort of a willingness, I guess, to try out new things and to experiment, and you know, an acceptance that you'll make cock-ups sometimes along the way, but keep trying new stuff. And I think probably the best example of that in our history is our big knit campaign, and hopefully some of you in here have kind of heard of it or seen it when it's on shelf. It's the one that puts the little woolly hats on our smoothie bottles, and in doing so raises a bunch of money for Age UK. And that all came about because we had this chap, our marketing manager at the time, a guy called Adam. We already had our founder, Adam, so he was New Adam. He used to get letters that like, Dear New Adam. And he had this idea one day, this kind of odd idea, and he was like, I think we should ask people to knit us little hats, and we'll put these little hats on our smoothie bottles, and then kind of for every behatted bottle that we sell, we'll donate a portion of that sale to charity. And he went to Rich, Adam and John, and he said, you know, guys, what do you think? Do you reckon this has got legs? And they were like, mate, this is probably the weirdest, stupidest idea we've ever heard. But he was really passionate about it, and when someone's really passionate about something, they'll generally deliver. So they kind of said, well, look, give it a go. We've got a saying there, which is, if you're 70% sure about something, then go for it, because if you wait to be 100% certain about everything, you just never get around to doing anything. And it's probably fair to say that Rich, Adam and John were a bit less than 70% sure that putting little hats on our smoothie bowls was a great idea, or asking people to knit us little hats in the first place was going to actually lead to anything. But it did. That first year we had just over 3,500 hats knitted to us, mainly because Adam bribed a bunch of ladies in the local WI to get involved so that he could prove to the boys this was a good idea. But so they were like, wow, this is actually not bad. And second year we did it again and tried to sort of do a bit more promotion about it, and had 20,000 hats sent in. And soon we had 100,000 hats being sent in. And last year's big knit, which was our 10th year anniversary, we had over 1 million little hats sent in to us. Every single one of them hand knitted voluntarily by real people in the UK. Since we started the campaign, we've had 4 million hats knitted for us and raised over £1.5 million for Age UK. And I have to say that, you know, we quite literally couldn't do any of this without the people that do it. So if you have ever bought a smoothie with a hat on, or you know someone that has knitted one, or you've knitted one yourself, then a massive thank you from us to you. We basically did this on the second floor of our office so that we could make the gag a shed load of hats. It took about 20 people for 3 hours to do this. It was difficult to justify, but it was a popular post on Facebook, so it was all right, we got away with it. And some of the hats people send in are unbelievable. I mean, you know, just the standard of creativity and intricacy is exceptional. But all of this stuff came about, and all of that money that got raised for charity, and all of the love that's been generated for our brand as a result of that campaign came about because someone had a weird idea and we ran with it, essentially. And so we're kind of trying out new things all the time, especially on our social channels, which just gives us a perfect platform to try out weird ideas. So I like to think if you kind of look at our Facebook page or our Twitter feed, and again, as biased as I am, I would urge you all to do that. I like to think that if you check it out, you couldn't really guess what it is we're going to post next. So you might see a kind of Happy Mother's Day message on Mother's Day, or this was something that we put out during the horse meat scandal. So kept my job as a result of it, which I was happy about. And I undeniably have a sort of sense of smug pride putting this one out. Every year we do it, every year it gets them, it's good. It's just a blank box. And this was nice. This was an online compliment generator, so a really simple website that we made last year. So we had a big campaign out there, Chain of Good campaign. There was a TV ad and all the rest of it, and it talked about the chain of good that starts when you buy one of our smoothies, because we donate 10% of profits each year to charity, and so therefore when you pick up a smoothie and drink it, you're helping us to start a chain of good around the world, which leads to good things happening. And we kind of wanted to, that's a really sort of holier than thou thing to talk about online, or to expect anyone to get truly excited by. I think they think they like it, you know, it's a nice thing that we donate money to charity, but we wanted to give them a kind of a more online friendly way for them to start their own chain of good. So hence we made this compliment generator. Really simple, you go on, you flick through, select the compliment that sort of resonated with you most, or the one that you thought, oh yeah, that's perfect for Dave down the road, or that's spot on for my mum. Hopefully not this one for your mum. And then you just send it to their Facebook wall or Twitter feed, and this cost us just over £5,000 to make. We promoted it with just over £10,000 of Facebook media, and we had 105,000 people share those compliments on their wall, which is just a phenomenal amount of reach for relatively little spend. Yeah, so good to experiment. And it was snowing a couple of years ago. I'm kind of always hoping it's going to snow again so we can bring our polar bears back. And that was good, and people really liked it, so we sort of carried on the theme on that day and just added a few more polar bear themed things. So there was Batman, and as is the case with all good ideas, it ended up with Gangnam Style polar bears, because those guys were pretty big at the time. And this is probably my favourite thing, I think, that we've kind of ever made, actually. So we released this online, actually to tie in with the day that they kind of announced the launch, so not the in-store launch, but when they announced the launch, so just a couple of weeks back. And it was so popular, and I think this is how social media can and should be used if done well. It was so popular that we thought, hang on a minute, this is such a good idea, can't we do something more with it? So we kind of got the backing internally from people to stick an ad in the Metro, the national Metro, on the day that the iPhone actually launched. And it was really helped by the fact that, A, we were in the guilty pleasures section, which is quite a sort of high dwell time, people like reading that bit. But in the pages leading up to it, directly leading up to our ad, was like 4 of the most mind-numbingly boring iPhone 6 adverts. I mean, we couldn't believe our luck, really. I mean, we could have been placed before them, but it was just so perfect. You had this rubbish ad, and then this bit of nonsense from us, which was nice. Then a picture of that surfaced on Reddit. It's a really exciting time as it all happened. A picture of that surfaced on Reddit, which led to it being on Imgur. I don't expect these things to mean something to everyone, but that's kind of they're like gatekeepers of internet virality, essentially. Ended up with 650,000 views on Imgur in 3 days over the weekend, which is just nuts. And then, I mean, you know, my personal dream completed when the Lad Bible's Facebook page decided to post it to their 4.5 million fans. I'm not sure they're our key demographic, but phenomenal reach. You've got 82,000 likes on their Facebook page alone. And I mean, a really conservative estimate, and this isn't impressions on Twitter or potential reach figures, this is real people, a conservative estimate of people who will have seen that. I would say it would be at least 1.5 million people who've not just flicked past it in their feed, but who've actually actively clicked on it or chosen to read it. And that came about because we shoved something up on Twitter, it did really well, and then we thought, well, let's move quickly and do something more with it. Obviously, I've cherry-picked a bunch of really good ideas that have gone really well for us, and there are many, many more that are cock-ups or just bits of content that don't work as well. But I guess my kind of point is that by putting your rod in lots of different lines out into the sea, you're likely to get a few catches, and then when something catches, it's how you invest behind it to make it a much bigger thing. And for us, we're not too worried about measuring the ROI of Facebook and Twitter. If we need to do that, then we need to start questioning why we bother talking to people on our packaging in the first place. That wasn't something that we did because we thought it would make people buy more products. We just did it because it felt like something that people would like and it would generate brand love. And we're happy enough to think that if we put good things out there online, people will think better of us, and as a result, hopefully buy us more. And yeah, and it's just a pure ego boost of a slide, but it's great that we get lots of likes, and we've got thousands of people that we please every week in, week out, hopefully, on social channels, but we also get some really strong industry recognition, which is great, and definitely massively proud to have been the only brand that's actually managed to place in the top 10 of those rankings. And there is no perfect social media ranking, and I don't claim that this means we're great, but it's nice that in the one that is kind of probably the most robust that exists out there, we've performed so strongly each year. Yeah, so that's pretty much it from me. So just to summarise, I think as Innocent, we have a really good, strong relationship with the people who buy our stuff, because we have always wanted to engage with people right from day one. And when we do, we try and do so in a human way. We try and do so in a genuinely interesting way. We're also showing people in lots of different ways, some kind of big and infrequent, like product changes, some kind of small and everyday, like Penguin Awareness Day, that we're listening. And finally, we're always just trying new things and finding out what works. So yeah, I hope that was interesting, and thank you very much for listening. Cheers.
Thank you, Joe. Try new things. Hang on, wait. Well, yeah, me first. You will be first. Well, actually, third. Try new things is the thing that resonated most with me out of all of that. A super brand, I'm sure you'll agree, Innocent. And if everyone thinks a little bit differently about their own brands, so many things to implement by trying new things. So thank you, Joe. We do have a couple of questions, or time for a couple of questions, before we go into the final discussion of the day. So, since you were so super keen and enthusiastic, what is your first question over there? And would you like the microphone? Yes.
Hello, my name's Catherine Armstrong. Fantastic presentation, thank you. And
Thank you.
Brilliant examples. 1.5 million actively clicked on your Apple example.
Yeah.
But you did say you've also got examples that haven't worked. Have you got any tips to the audience on? Because actually, a lot of it is about constantly trying things.
Yeah.
Have you got examples of things that haven't worked as well?
Yes, in terms of sort of, I'm trying to think of what might be more useful rather than, because it's difficult to sort of explain stuff unless I could show them really easily. But in terms of a good way of avoiding creating stuff that doesn't work well is to sort of, I just always put it through a filter, which is, would I send this to a mate, basically? Would I send this to a mate, or would I find it interesting enough to warrant feeling better about the brand as a result of it? I should have a list of failed attempts. We've got lots of things where we have to be quite. We've got this kind of content filter, which is we want everything we put online to be funny, heartwarming, useful, or interesting. If it's one or more of those things, then hopefully people will actively want to engage with it. But I think we've definitely got examples. Here's a massive cock up I made, actually. Here we go. I found this image of, it was a light switch on the wall of a bathroom, and someone had sort of created a stick man around it so that the light switch was where that would have been. And it said, how would you like to be turned on and left? So it was like, it was trying to encourage people to switch off their lights. And I thought, what a nice, what a funny way of doing that. That's brilliant. I popped that online and then went off to Barcelona on some sort of heinous stag do, and got a call from my boss that was like, yeah, we've got quite a lot of women's rights and anti-rape groups getting in touch with us, because one of the main excuses that is used in rape cases is that someone they were like, oh, well, she turned me on, or he turned me on, or whatever it is. I mean, just an example there of how trying to do something the right way can come right back at you if you don't. We now have a filter which is, I guess, just always think, could this offend anyone? And then if you answer no to that, ask at least 3 or 4 other people, and then ask them to ask their mum. But I mean, that's kind of a really severe example, and I'm struggling to work out how I ended up talking about rape so soon after finishing that talk. I should probably stop, actually. Yeah.
I would, yeah. Any other questions from anybody? Yes, I would be all over there, wouldn't you?
Hi, Joe. You talked about your e-newsletter. Is it 180,000 recipients?
Yeah.
So that frequency transmission is weekly.
Yes.
Do you find it difficult with the content strategy?
Yeah.
Are there some weeks where you think, what the heck are we going to put in this?
Yeah, definitely. It's not so much a struggle to find stuff to put in it. It's more a drain on resources in a team where we're increasingly drawn to Facebook and Twitter, and there's so much that's going on all day, every day on those channels that it's now quite difficult. We have this debate every couple of months, actually. Should we make it once a month? Should we make it on the one time when we tried to do it, we got so many people get in touch that were like, whoa, where's my Friday newsletter, that we thought, well, maybe we should try and keep doing it. I think whilst it's very unlikely that Facebook and Twitter can be deemed fads that are about to go anywhere in the next 10 years, we want to make sure we keep up our email newsletter, because that's just a brilliant base, and kind of we own it. I mean, I'm sure other people involved with digital marketing. I don't like the amount of control that Facebook has over our business performance on that platform. At least with a newsletter, we've kind of got more control over it. So for us, we definitely want to keep going with it. Yeah, there are weeks where it's harder. I think we've just got a good culture of everyone around the building contributing content to our different channels, and that's kind of really key. So if you just hire one person and expect one person to churn out all of this stuff, that's really difficult, actually. I think our lives are made lots easier by the fact that, A, we've got an in-house creative team, which is brilliant. I'd say sort of, if you want to do social properly, an in-house team is kind of essential, and an in-house team that can help you design is really good too, so you're not having to pay an agency all the time. But just the culture of having people in Fruit Towers send us stuff all the time. People see interesting things over the weekend, or someone's done something interesting in our supply team, and then they kind of send on the stories to us. So in many ways, the open culture of the office makes that job a lot easier.
Final question over here.
Hello. Just wanted to check. You say you're selling to 15 countries. Do you do the same elsewhere?
In all countries?
Yes.
Yeah, at a different scale. So I mean, that's kind of one of my main jobs for this year and going into next year is, relatively speaking, we're probably an 8 or a 9 out of 10 in terms of social website and service in the UK. I don't mean that we're perfect at that stuff, but I just mean relative to other countries. And we're probably a 5 or a 6 in some of our other regions. So we do those things in all other countries. We've got a Facebook page now in I think pretty much in almost every country. But we're only on Twitter in France, Ireland, and the UK. And we're kind of, one of the big things I'm learning at the moment is how you can turn your hub or your HQ, in our case our UK office, into a kind of centre of excellence, I guess, where you can kind of create toolkits and just distribute things out. So that's something that we're working on at the moment.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Joe. Round of applause.
Thanks, guys.